Imagine this, a cold, really isolated colonial village, 1692. Wind isn't just howling, it's like shrieking through the walls, thick snow everywhere for months. Families are stuck inside these small, simple wooden houses. But it's more than just the cold, isn't it? In this place, Salem Village, fear becomes, well, almost a physical thing. It creeps into homes, into minds, twisting everything until its deadly panic just takes over. Okay, let's unpack this. We're diving deep into the Salem Witch Trials. It's a moment in history that's, oh, it's not easy to explain it. It's a haunt us. And it's such a stark reminder of how quickly things can fall apart in a community. I mean, this wasn't just some small incident. It was a deadly panic. Fear, suspicion, deep social anxieties all trained together, and the cost. Staggering. 19 people hanged. Others dead in prison. One man, Giles, pressed to death. Just awful. All because a few young girls claimed they were being tormented. It just unleashed this flood of accusations. So our mission today, to give you a shortcut to understanding this really pivotal haunting event, not just what happened, but why it spun so catastrophically out of control. We'll look at the causes, the key people, the lessons learned. So you don't just know the facts, but you really feel the weight of this story.
Exactly. And what makes Salem so potent, I think, is how it just lays bare human psychology. It's this raw example of how a societal order can just disintegrate, especially when, private grudges get weaponized by public fear.
Right, a kind of collective delusion.
Totally. The truth unravels, fear takes charge. And what's fascinating, as you said, it wasn't simple. It was this complex mix of intense religious belief, social anxiety, and, well, human psychology.
Yeah.
It's a massive cautionary tale about what happens when fear runs rampant, when lines blur between personal issues and, the public good.
Undeniable results.
Catastrophic results. And our sources here are pretty rich. We've got original court records, personal accounts, analyses from historians, giving us a pretty full picture of this story, a story that really shows how fragile justice can be and the destructive power of a lie.
That winter, 1692,
Yeah.
it really set the stage, didn't it? Survival was a struggle, that wind, the isolation, families cooped up in these small houses, roads blocked, cut off. It sounds like the physical cold almost mirrored a kind of spiritual chill.
It really did.
Yeah.
And you have to connect this to the bigger picture and a key figure, Reverend Samuel Parris, the village minister.
Okay, tell us about him.
Oh, he wasn't a local. London-born, raised in Barbados. His family had a plantation, different world. He tried business in Boston, but it didn't go well. Failed pretty badly, actually. Lost money, status.
So the ministry was a way back, respectability.
Exactly. He arrived in Salem Village around 1689, expecting prestige, a good salary, deference. Salem Village was already fractious, deeply divided over land, church politics, everything.
Not the welcome he expected.
Not at all. There are these two factions, traditional farmers versus newer, more commercially minded families wanting independence from Salem town, and Parris. He pretty quickly sided with one group, which just made the existing tensions worse, alienated the other side immediately. And his worldview, very stark. Puritan faith, good versus evil, God versus the devil, black and white.
He saw the devil as a real active force.
Absolutely convinced of it. Saw him everywhere, in sin, temptation, any misfortune the village faced. He preached these fiery sermons about damnation, Satan's traps, and he felt challenged. Any dissent, any questioning of his authority, he took it personally, maybe even saw it as the devil working against him.
Wow. So the atmosphere in his own house must have been intense.
You can imagine. The parsonage was cramped, cold. He lived there with his wife, Elizabeth, their daughter, Betty, his niece, Abigail Williams.
The two girls who first showed symptoms.
Right. And also, they're enslaved people, Tituba and John Indian. So you have this pressure cooker, Parris's anxieties, his paranoia about his standing, his fear of failure. It was fertile ground for what came next.
And it was right there in that tense environment that the unsettling afflictions started. First, Betty Parris, she was 9. Then her cousin, Abigail Williams, 11. Both living under his roof.
Directly influenced by his sermons, the cramped quarters, the fear.
And their symptoms were terrifying. Screaming, thrashing, complaining about being pinched, pricked by invisible hands.
Yeah, and contorting their bodies into these impossible shapes, making animal noises, staring blankly, like they were seeing horrors no one else could.
John Hale, a minister from nearby, he witnessed some of this, right?
He did. He later wrote about their odd postures, their foolish, ridiculous speeches, being bitten and pinched by invisible agents, bodies racked and tormented.
It must have seemed like Parris's worst fears coming true. Visible proof of the spiritual war he was always preaching about.
Exactly. He was desperate. First, he tried purely spiritual things, more prayer, fasting, calling in other ministers, but nothing worked.
The fits just continued. got worse.
Seemed to. More dramatic, more frightening. So he called the local doctor, William Griggs, respected physician. Griggs examined them thoroughly, looked for fever, rash, injury, anything physical. Found nothing. They seemed healthy.
But clearly weren't.
Right. And you have to remember, in 1692, the supernatural wasn't just folklore, it was part of their reality. The devil was a real force. So after ruling out illness, Griggs gave his verdict. The girls weren't sick, they were bewitched. The evil hand was upon them.
Wow. That diagnosis, that changes everything.
It's profoundly significant. It gives a name, a focus to all the fear, a supernatural explanation that fit their worldview. But in doing so, it basically lit the fuse, set everything in motion. It was maybe a diagnosis of convenience, but also probably a genuine belief.
And the news of the bewitchment spread fast.
Like wildfire. The village was terrified. People were desperate to fight this invisible enemy they now believed was among them.
Which led to some interesting remedies.
Yeah.
Like the witch cake.
Yes. Mary Sibley, a neighbor of the Parris family, suggested that. A folk remedy.
What was it exactly? Sounds grim.
It was. You take the afflicted girl's urine, mix it with rye meal, bake a cake, and feed it to a dog.
Why a dog?
The belief was the dog would then be drawn to the witch who cast the spell, reveal them. It was, old magic, almost pagan.
A sign of desperation, really.
Absolutely. Turning to older ways when the church couldn't seem to fix it, Parris was furious when he found out.
I bet. He condemned it.
Publicly called it a diabolical, heathenish practice, basically using the devil's tools to fight the devil.
But the damage was done.
Too late. The cake was baked. The line between fighting witchcraft and practicing it got blurry. And people felt even more desperate, more convinced this evil force was real and tangible. And it's right in this atmosphere, this escalating fear, this blurring of lines that Tituba becomes so central and ultimately so tragic.
The enslaved woman in Parris's house from Barbados.
Yes, likely South American or Caribbean descent brought from Barbados. She would have known different spiritual traditions, West African beliefs, maybe indigenous ones mixed together.
And she shares stories with the girls.
Right, in those long, cold winter nights. Tales of magic, voodoo, spirits from her homeland. Probably just innocent storytelling to pass the time.
But in Salem, 1692, with everyone on edge about the devil.
Exactly. Those stories took on a whole new, sinister meaning. Tituba herself later admitted telling them tales of a spirit world that became terrifyingly real to these Puritan girls.
At her position.
Yeah.
She was incredibly vulnerable.
Completely. Lowest rung of society, enslaved, no legal rights, no property, totally at the mercy of Parris and the community.
A perfect target.
A prime target for suspicion, a convenient scapegoat. Her otherness made her easy to demonize when things started to go wrong.
So the pressure keeps building. The girls' fits continue, getting more public. The village wants answers. Who's doing this?
Right. And under relentless questioning from Parris, other adults, the girls finally named names. February 29th, 1692.
And the first three, they weren't exactly pillars of the community, were they?
Not at all. That's crucial. All three were already on the margins. Tituba, of course. Then Sarah Good, a homeless woman known for being sullen, maybe muttering curses. And Sarah Osborne, elderly, caught up in a land dispute, and she was living with an indentured servant she wasn't married to, which was a scandal back then.
So this raises the question, did the girls just pick these names out of thin air, or were they nudged, suggested by the adults?
That's the million-dollar question historians still debate. We can't know for sure, but it's very telling that the first targets were already outsiders.
It suggests existing grudges played a role.
Absolutely. Social standing, personal resentments, village gossip, it all fed into it. Look at Sarah Osborne, her land battle, remarrying her servant. People already disapproved of her.
So the witchcraft accusation was just the final blow, giving a supernatural reason for their dislike.
It seems likely. She was an easy target, already judged by the community. The accusation just formalized it in the most terrifying way.
Okay, so names are named. Now it moved from rumor and fear to...
The law.
Exactly. The law steps in. Two magistrates, John Hathorne and Jonathan Corwin, arrived from Salem town.
Important men.
Very respected figures, confident the legal system could sort this out, find the truth, root out the evil.
Where did the examinations happen? In the village meeting house, the center of public life. The whole village turned out. Imagine the tension.
The whole community watching.
Totally. The magistrates arrived, the accused women, the afflicted girls. The fate of everyone hanging in the balance. It was formal, but steeped in this undercurrent of terror and superstition. Law and panic all mixed together. they started with Sarah Good.
The homeless woman.
Right. Already on the fringes, poor, sharp-tongued, resentful, easy target. She was defiant before the magistrates, insisted she was innocent. But they didn't buy it.
And the girls, what did they do?
That was key. Whenever Sarah Good looked at them, they'd cry out in agony, claim her specter, her invisible spirit, was attacking them.
Spectral evidence. That sounds impossible to fight.
It pretty much was. How do you prove your spirit isn't tormenting someone only they can see? It became devastating.
Did anyone defend her?
Shockingly, her own husband, William Good, testified against her. Said he'd long thought she was a witch, had a malignant touch.
Wow, no allies at all.
The record just shows this trapped woman, already condemned by everyone. Her pleas just seen as more proof of her deceit. Then came Sarah Osborne. Again, elderly, the land dispute, living with the servant, already an outsider.
Did she react differently?
She also denied everything, but again, her pleas were just drowned out by the girls' fits, claiming her specter was pinching, biting, choking them. The magistrates pushed her on past grudges, rumors about her character. Her status as an outsider, someone who broke the rules, made her vulnerable.
It seems like her perceived moral failings were used against her.
Definitely. And she was apparently quite ill, maybe confused. Her inability to answer clearly was probably taken as more evidence of guilt, some kind of unholy confusion.
And then Tituba.
Yes, Tituba's turn. And her situation was the most precarious. Enslaved, no rights, accused by the very girl she'd helped raise.
Did she deny it at first?
She did, initially. She knew the danger, but the magistrates, especially Corwin, were relentless. Questioned her for 3 days straight.
3 days.
Why?
Was there coercion?
Historical accounts strongly suggest physical violence, psychological pressure, until she finally broke.
And when she broke,
Yeah.
she didn't just confess.
Oh, no. She confessed spectacularly, didn't just say, yes, I'm a witch. She spun this incredible, detailed, terrifying story.
What did she say?
A tall man in black visited her, sometimes as an animal, demanded she serve him. A great black book with 9 names in it. Hers, Good's, Osborne's, flying on a broomstick, spectral meetings, feasts with the devil, told him to hurt the girls. It was exactly what they wanted to hear. And here's where it gets really interesting. Tituba's confession was a game changer.
How so?
It was sensation. It didn't just confirm their fears about witchcraft being real.
Yeah.
It gave those fears vivid, terrifying details, a tangible reality.
It validated the whole thing for the magistrates.
Completely. It provided a narrative, names, proof. It opened the floodgates for mass hysteria, legitimized the girl's fit.
Well, you also said it was a survival strategy for her.
Yes, and that's crucial too. By confessing, and especially by naming others, she avoided immediate execution, unlike Good and Osborne eventually. She bought time, deflected attention. And for a moment, weirdly, she held this dangerous kind of power as the key informant.
So this confession, born out of fear and maybe her own cultural stories,
It became the spark that truly ignited the whole witch hunt, drove it forward with terrifying speed, validated everyone's darkest fears.
so Tituba's confession is like throwing gasoline on the fire. The hysteria just explodes.
Absolutely. Emboldened by her story, the spectral meetings, the devil's book, the girls started naming more people. Lots more.
And not just outsiders anymore.
No, that's the critical shift. The accusations spread, respected people, devout church members, Martha Corey, known for her piety, Rebecca Nurse, elderly, universally respected matriarch, even Sarah Good's 4-year-old daughter, Dorcas.
A 4-year-old.
Ah,
Interrogated, imprisoned.
yes. It's horrifying. The village just plunged into panic. A real siege mentality. Nobody felt safe.
Jail started filling up.
Overflowing. People from all walks of life. The whispers turned into this roaring chorus of accusation and fear. The investigation hadn't contained it. It unleashed it. Things were clearly out of control for the local magistrates. Jails full, accusations multiplying. The authorities in Boston had to step in.
So the governor gets involved.
Yes, the new governor, Sir William Fix, arrives from England in May 92, finds the colony in chaos. His response: create a special court. The Court of Oyer and Terminer French for it to hear and determine, just for these witchcraft cases.
Who was on this court?
7 leading citizens, the elite. But the key figure was the chief magistrate, William Stoughton. He was also the lieutenant governor.
And what was his view on all this?
Stoughton was intense. A rigid Puritan, absolutely believed in witchcraft, saw it as a real active threat. He was determined to purge the colony, saw it as his divine mission.
So the court, meant to bring justice.
Under Stoughton, it became this ruthless machine, an instrument of death and injustice, really, focused entirely on getting convictions. His background shaped this. Born in England, Harvard and Oxford educated, brought this fierce intellect and sense of divine purpose.
Uncompromising.
Totally. Rigid beliefs, showed almost no mercy, pushed hard for the death penalty, and he was a huge believer in spectral evidence. Dismiss any doubts as Satan trying to interfere.
Did he ever change his mind? Later on?
Chillingly, no.
Yeah.
He remained unrepentant even after it all fell apart and others admitted they were wrong. His leadership was absolutely critical in turning that court into what it became.
Okay, so this new court is formed. Who's the first person they try?
Bridget Bishop. And she definitely stood out in Salem.
How so?
Well, she dressed flamboyantly, supposedly wore a red bodice, which was scandalous for Puritans. She owned a tavern, a place linked to drinking, maybe gambling, not piety.
And she'd been accused before.
Yes, back in 1680, but she was acquitted then. This time was different.
What was the evidence against her? Still spectral.
A mountain of it. The girls writhed and screamed when she was near, claimed her specter was tormenting them. Plus, witnesses came forward with old stories, some going back decades. Spoiled milk, sick cows, strange apparitions, all blamed on her alleged witchcraft.
And Cotton Mather, the minister, he wrote about her case.
He did. He was a big defender of the trials. Wrote about Bishop's case in his book, The Wonders of the Invisible World, presenting the evidence as undeniable proof. That really cemented public opinion against her.
So her trial was basically a foregone conclusion.
Pretty much. Less a trial, more a public confirmation of guilt. She was found guilty very quickly. June 10th, 1692, Bridget Bishop is taken to Gallows Hill, barren place overlooking the town, would soon become infamous.
A public execution.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Large crowd gathered, meant as a stark warning. She maintained her innocence right to the end, pleaded for her life, but ignored.
And she was hanged. The first official execution.
The first. And the impact was chilling. It didn't make them pause. It seemed to embolden them.
They saw it as a victory.
A victory against the devil. Proof the court was doing its job. It was a terrifying sign that many more deaths would follow. They felt they were on the right path.
The accusations keep spreading, now hitting people right at the heart of the community.
Exactly. John Proctor, successful farmer, tavern keeper, man of property, standing.
But he was also skeptical, a critic.
Hugely. One of the most outspoken critics right from the start. Called the girls liars and frauds. Said they should be whipped. Very brave, but it made him a target.
How did they get to him?
Through his servant, Mary Warren. She was one of the afflicted girls. When Proctor threatened to beat her for her fits, she accused him. Then his wife, Elizabeth, was accused. Even his children later.
He must have been outraged.
Absolutely. He knew it was unjust, the evidence absurd. He wrote this powerful letter to the court, begging for a change of venue. Said the Salem trials were a sham, evidence flimsy and unreliable.
Did it work?
No. His pleas were ignored. The defiant critic was now a prisoner, facing the full force of the hysteria he'd fought against. And Proctor's examination. It's fascinating. He was strong, proud, angry, refused to be intimidated. But every time he denied it, the girls put on a show. Writhing, screaming, claiming his specter was attacking them, called him the ringleader.
And Mary Warren, his servant, she testified against him.
Devastatingly so. She actually wavered earlier, briefly admitted the girls were lying, probably because Proctor pressured her.
But she went back to accusing him.
Under immense pressure, the other girls turned on her, accused her of witchcraft. She broke, rejoined them with a vengeance. Her screams, claiming Proctor tried to make her sign the devil's book. They sealed his fate.
Did he confess? I read somewhere he signed something.
He did, briefly, under duress in prison, probably trying to save his life, his family, but then courageously he tore it up. Chose death over lying and betraying his principles.
His last words.
Reportedly a prayer for his accusers. Incredible dignity in the face of such injustice.
While all this is happening, what were conditions like in the jail?
Appalling. Truly horrifying. A dark, dismal place. Small, overcrowded cells. Filthy, no sanitation.
Not enough food or water.
Barely any, often contaminated. Prisoners were often chained up, living in squalor. Disease was rampant fevers, dysentery.
People died in there. Before trial.
Yes, several. Sarah Osborne was one. Died before she could even face the court. Effectively condemned without trial. It was a place of misery and torment.
And psychological pressure, too. To confess.
Constant pressure. Ministers, magistrates visiting, urging confession. Saying it was the only way to save their souls, maybe their lives.
Did people confess under that pressure?
Some did, desperate for mercy, and often named more people, just adding fuel to the fire. But many others refused. Held on to their innocence, enduring the horror rather than lie. All through that summer of '92, the court of Oyer and Terminer just kept going. This grim, predictable, deadly pattern.
What was the pattern?
Accused brought in, often weak from jail. Girls have their fits. Spectral evidence presented as absolute proof. Guilty verdict. It was a machine of death operating relentlessly.
More convictions.
Sarah Good, Elizabeth Howe, Susanna Martin. The list grew. The judges seemed totally convinced they were doing God's work.
In the grip of a delusion.
A powerful, self-reinforcing delusion, purging evil, saving souls by taking lives. They seemed immune to doubt or compassion, convinced of their own righteousness.
July 19th, 1692. Another wave of executions.
Yes, 5 more people taken to Gallows Hill. Sarah Good, Elizabeth Howe, Susanna Martin, Rebecca Nurse, and Sarah Wilds.
A diverse group again.
Yes. A beggar, farmer's wife, widow, respected matriarch, all condemned as witches. The execution was somber, but still well attended. 5 bodies hanging, a brutal message.
But you mentioned Rebecca Nurse. Her execution started to cause doubts.
Well, Sarah Good first, defiant right to the end,
Yeah.
famously cursed the minister, Nicholas Noyes, right?
God will give you blood to drink.
Exactly. And Noyes later died of a hemorrhage. Spooky. But yes, Rebecca Nurse. Her case was huge, impeccable character, elderly, pious matriarch. Her accusation shocked everyone. 39 neighbors signed a petition defending her.
Did the jury listen?
Initially, yes, they found her not guilty. But then the afflicted girls had more fits. The judges pressured the jury to reconsider, and they changed the verdict, convicted her.
That's awful.
Horrible. She was excommunicated from the church, too, before being hanged. Her death, this respected woman martyred, that really was a turning point. People started seriously questioning the whole thing.
Let's go back to Mary Warren, Proctor's servant. You said she recanted, then went back.
Yes, a really tragic figure, caught in the middle. Influenced by Proctor's skepticism, she did briefly admit the girls were lying. A huge potential crack in the accuser's story.
But the other girls wouldn't let her.
No way. They
Yeah.
were too invested, maybe terrified of being exposed. They turned on her viciously, accused her of witchcraft, tormented her in court until she just broke down sobbing.
Because she rejoined them.
Completely. The court record is chilling. Shows her caught between conscience and the mob. The mob won. She went back to being an accuser and apparently became one of the most aggressive.
Just shows the power of that pressure.
Exactly. Self-preservation overriding truth in a climate of absolute terror.
If Rebecca Nurse's conviction caused unease, what about George Burroughs, a former minister accused?
That sent shockwaves. Burroughs had been the minister in Salem Village years before, left after a dispute. But the girls named him the ringleader, the dark mastermind.
Arrested in Maine.
Yes, brought back to Salem. And they used his physical strength against him. He was apparently very strong. They twisted it into proof of diabolical power from the devil.
And the girls' performance.
Spectacular by all accounts, claiming he was biting them, pinching them, forcing them to sign the devil's book. His conviction seemed to confirm the worst fears if even a minister could fall. But his execution, August 19th, that became another turning point, sowing real doubt.
Hey, what happened?
On the gallows, noose around his neck, he gave this powerful speech asserting his innocence, prayed for his accusers, and then he recited the Lord's Prayer perfectly, start to finish.
And that was significant because
Puritans believed a witch, possessed by the devil, couldn't say holy words without stumbling or blaspheming. The crowd was stunned, silent. Some even called for his release.
their certainty was shaken.
For a moment, but Cotton Mather was there, intervened quickly, told the crowd Burroughs wasn't technically ordained, and the devil could appear as an angel of light to deceive them.
To the execution went ahead.
It did. Burroughs was hanged. But those seeds of doubt were definitely sown. People started wondering.
And then there's Giles Corey. His story is just brutal.
One of the most bizarre and horrifying parts of the whole thing, Corey was elderly, notoriously stubborn, known for lawsuits, accused along with his wife, Martha.
And he refused to plead. Guilty or not guilty?
Right. He wouldn't say either. He knew if he pleaded guilty or pleaded not guilty and was convicted, his property would be forfeit. His heirs would get nothing. By refusing to plead, he hoped to keep his estate for his children. A silent protest.
But there was a consequence for refusing to plead.
A horrific one. Under English law, then, they could use torture. Peine forte et dure. Strong and hard punishment.
What did they do?
Stripped him, laid him on the ground, put a board on his chest, and piled heavy stones on it, slowly crushing him, demanding a plea.
How long did that last?
2 agonizing days. And Corey, being incredibly stubborn, his only response when they asked him to plead was, more weight.
More weight. Unbelievable defiance.
Died under the stones September 19th. Chose that horrific death over legitimizing the court. It shocked people, even his tormentors, became this enduring symbol of resistance, and further eroded public support for the trials.
The last executions,
Yeah.
September 22nd.
Yes, 8 more people hanged, including Martha Corey, Giles' wife, and Mary Easty, Rebecca Nurse's sister.
Was the mood changing by then?
Definitely. The crowd was smaller, the atmosphere more somber. The initial fervor was fading, replaced by unease, maybe even horror at the sheer number of deaths. And Mary Easty, she wrote a petition.
Yes, a very moving one. Not for herself, she knew she would die, but pleading for an end to it all.
She wrote something like, "I petition not for my own life, but that no more innocent blood may be shed." Powerful words.
Too late to save her, though.
Sadly, yes, she was hanged with the others, but her plea, combined with everything else, Burroughs, Corey, the sheer number of respected people killed, it signaled a shift. The tide was finally about to turn.
So what finally tipped the balance? The accusations just went too far.
Exactly. They reached the very top. In the fall of '92, the afflicted girls made a fatal mistake. They accused Governor Phipps's own wife, Lady Mary Phipps.
Wow, accusing the governor's wife, that's bold.
Stunningly audacious. And as you say, a fatal miscalculation. Phipps had been supporting the trials, set up the court, but this was personal. Suddenly, the governor who believed the spectral evidence against others had to face the possibility that the girls weren't infallible messengers of God, but, well, maybe just liars.
Or at least deeply mistaken.
Right. This personal threat, plus the growing public unease, Corey's death, the doubts from ministers, it forced a critical shift in his thinking. The trials had hit too close to home.
And around the same time, a major voice from the religious establishment spoke out.
Yes, a very powerful voice, Increase Mather, hugely respected minister, president of Harvard, and interestingly, Cotton Mather's father.
The son supported the trials, but the father.
The father became deeply concerned. He delivered this crucial sermon on October 3rd, later published as Cases of Conscience Concerning Evil Spirits.
What was his argument?
He directly attacked the use of spectral evidence, argued forcefully that the devil was cunning, could impersonate an innocent person to trick the afflicted.
So the girl seeing someone's specter didn't prove anything.
Exactly. It was unreliable, could be a diabolical trick. And he famously said that line, "It were better that 10 suspected witches should escape than that one innocent person should be condemned."
That's a direct challenge to the court's main evidence.
A profound challenge. It basically pulled the rug out from under the legal foundation of the trials, and it gave Governor Phipps the theological and intellectual cover he needed to change course. A thunderclap from the top.
So Phipps now had the political will and the religious justification. What did he do?
Took decisive action. October 29th, 1692, he ordered the Court of Oyer and Terminer dissolved. Finished.
Just like that.
Just like that.
Yeah.
Forbade any more executions, halted all accusations, stopped anyone else being jailed for witchcraft. The machine was finally officially shut down.
Must have been a huge relief.
Palpable relief across the colony, I imagine. Now, was it purely conscience for Phipps or smart politics? Probably both, right?
The accusation against his wife had to play a role.
Definitely. But also the growing public opposition, Burroughs' execution, Corey's death, Increase Mather's arguments, they all piled up. Phipps likely realized the trials were destroying the colony, damaging its reputation. They just had to stop before everything collapsed. A pragmatic decision to restore sanity.
But what about the people still accused? Still in jail?
A new court was set up in January '93, the Superior Court of Judicature, to handle the remaining cases.
Less different rules.
Crucially, yes. The judges were more skeptical. Stoughton was still there, but his influence was gone, and the massive change. No more spectral evidence allowed.
They needed real, tangible proof now.
Exactly. Burden of proof shifted back, and the results were immediate. Dramatic.
How so?
Of 56 people tried by this new court, under the new rules, only 3 were convicted.
Only 3 out of 56.
Yes. And even those 3 were quickly pardoned by Governor Phipps. You can imagine the relief in the courtroom as acquittal after acquittal came down. The nightmare was finally ending.
Shows how much depended on that spectral evidence.
Absolutely. Changed the rules of evidence, and the whole system flipped from conviction to justice.
So the trials stopped. The court changed. What about those still locked up?
In May 1693, Governor Phipps issued a general pardon. Everyone still in jail on witchcraft charges was freed. The final act, closing this dark chapter.
The jail doors opened.
Yes, a moment of incredible joy, relief, but also deeply bittersweet.
Oh, bittersweet.
Because the people coming out were often broken, sick, poor, having lost homes, farms, reputations, and family members.
Freedom, but shadowed by loss.
Exactly. Contemporary accounts talk about joyous reunions, but also somber ones, tears of relief mixed with grief for those who weren't coming home, a permanent reminder of the damage done.
So after the frenzy died down, what happened to the key players, the accusers, the officials?
It varied. Ann Putnam Jr., one of the main accusers, actually apologized publicly years later in 1706, said she was deluded by the devil, asked for forgiveness. Very rare.
What about the others, like Abigail Williams?
Most, like Abigail, just vanished from the historical record. No public apology, no known remorse. Their later lives are a mystery.
And the officials, the judges.
Some did show remorse. Samuel Sewell, one of the judges, made this amazing public confession in church in 1697, stood there while his apology for his blame and shame was read out, acknowledged his guilt.
That took courage.
It really did. And 12 of the jurors also issued a public apology later, admitting they were sadly deluded and mistaken. Official apologies and reparations from the government took much longer, though. Shows how deep the wounds were.
When did they start to make amends?
1711 was a big step. The Massachusetts legislature reversed the attainder for many victims.
What's attainder again?
It meant losing all civil rights, property, inheritance rights upon conviction for a major crime. Reversing it restored their good names legally.
Did they get financial compensation?
Yes, though it was a modest sum, £600, distributed among survivors and heirs. Couldn't undo the damage, but it was an important symbolic gesture, an admission of state wrongdoing.
And full exoneration took even longer.
Much longer. A formal apology in 1957. The very last victims weren't fully exonerated until 2001, over 300 years later.
Wow. That long delay really speaks volumes about the lasting impact.
It really does. How hard it is to fully reckon with such events.
3 centuries on, Salem still fascinates, still disturbs. A huge cautionary tale. But the question lingers. What really happened? Why did it happen? So many theories, right?
Absolutely. The mystery endures. We try to find rational explanations for irrational behavior.
Like scientific theories. Ergot poisoning.
That's one theory, yes. Ergot is a fungus on rye bread. Can cause spasms, hallucinations, symptoms similar to the afflicted girls. It might explain some symptoms for some people, but it doesn't really explain the patterns of accusation, the social dynamics, the mass hysteria itself.
So social and economic factors were key.
Crucial, often overlooked. Deep tensions between Salem Village farmers and Salem town merchants, land disputes, church arguments, resentment, a volatile mix. Personal feuds easily got reframed as witchcraft.
And the fear from attacks on the frontier. King Philip's War.
That created a lasting siege mentality. Feeling surrounded by enemies, visible and invisible, made them susceptible to believing in a hidden enemy within, hyper-vigilant. And then there's the psychology of the accusers. These young women, usually powerless in Puritan society.
Suddenly had immense power, life and death power.
Exactly, an intoxicating, dangerous power. Over adults, over respected figures. That, combined with the fear, the attention, maybe a form of mass psychogenic illness, it created the self-feeding loop. Their performances drove the whole thing.
And putting Salem in context, it wasn't totally unique, right? Part of bigger European witch hunts.
Absolutely. Europe saw tens of thousands executed between the 15th and 18th centuries. Salem drew on that context. Puritan beliefs fueled it too, this constant battle between good and evil, the devil actively undermining their holy experiment.
Gender played a big role. Most accused were women.
Overwhelmingly. 14 of 20 executed were women, about 80% of all accused. Women seen as more susceptible to the devil, though interestingly, many accusers were also young women, using those stereotypes as a weapon. Complex dynamic.
And the legal failings. Spectral evidence again.
Catastrophic. Made defense impossible. How do you prove your spirit wasn't doing something?
And internationally, Salem was kind of behind the time.
Yeah, an anachronism. European witch hunts were declining by 1692. Salem was a throwback, an embarrassment to more enlightened thinking elsewhere. A dramatic, terrible last gasp. So this raises the important question for us today. What are the big lessons here? What can we take away?
The fragility of justice. Due process.
Absolutely. Salem is this powerful reminder of how easily fear and suspicion can tear a community apart. How quickly the presumption of innocence gets thrown out when a mob mentality takes hold. You could argue Salem's horrors are baked into American law now. The right to confront accusers, protection against self-incrimination, demanding real evidence.
Countermeasures born from that injustice.
Exactly. Constitutional safeguards designed so it could never happen again.
Arthur Miller saw the connection in the Crucible, right? McCarthyism.
He said the witch hunt was panic when individual freedom started growing. Precisely. And the Bill of Rights free speech, fair trial. You can see them as direct responses to Salem's abuses. It's a call for eternal vigilance. The forces of fear, prejudice, abuse of power, they're still with us, ready to pop up if we're not careful. Hashtag out Chad Wilker.
So wrapping up our deep dive into the Salem Crucible, we've traced it from that spark of fear in a bleak winter, through the horrifying spiral of accusations and injustice, to the slow, painful path toward reckoning. What stands out for me is just the human element, the good intentions twisted into terrible outcomes, the devastating power of unchecked fear, and the incredible courage of those few who stood against it, often paying the ultimate price, but whose defiance helped stop it. We really hope this deep dive gave you, our listener, a shortcut to understanding this crucial, complex event. Not just the history, but the insights into human behavior, social pressure, and that need for vigilance that remains so relevant.
And what's truly fascinating here, I think, the deepest lesson, is how Salem acts like this unflinching mirror. It shows our own capacity for both good and, well, terrible evil. It shows how good people, respected people, can do awful things when gripped by fear and absolute certainty. When they think the ends justify the means, that's maybe the most disturbing lesson for today.
So the challenge is recognizing those signs.
Exactly. Recognizing mass hysteria, questioning assumptions, demanding real evidence, not spectral claims, choosing courage over cowardice, truth over lies, compassion over cruelty. The victims of Salem, they call out across the centuries, don't they? Asking us to learn from their fate, to make sure it never, ever happens again in any form. That's the real legacy of Salem.